Welcome again to What I Did Next Encore, where I check in with some of your favorite alumni guests. I'm delighted that on this mini episode, I'm joined by entrepreneur and investor Ahmed Alfi, who was also the show's first ever guest. Back then, in early 2021, he told me about his life's pivot points and how he's investing in the tech ecosystem in the region. I caught up with him about the evolution of his role in the 4 years since that conversation.
On the work front, I've been focusing more on Saudi Ventures. I have shed all responsibilities completely for Flat Six Labs in the Greek campus on the operating side. And I'm really kind of dug into a couple of my portfolio companies and fundraising for the next fund, which we're hoping to do the close in the next quarter.
And was that the reason for moving away from the Greek campus and Flat Six Labs? That was presumably always the intention, right? Once you got them up and running, you were not going to be managing that day to day, or
No, just I'm not going to manage. Nobody's going to manage anything forever. So
yeah,
there's really good people, fantastic teams managing everything. With the Greek campus, we merged with another company called Encore and have created a new brand called Work Plus, WRK Plus. So it's has multiple 15 locations around Egypt and expanding. And Flat Six Labs has been just very professionally run from day one by the team there. So I'm focusing 100%. I wasn't dedicating that much time to it, but I've kind of stepped back completely. And so Eddie is the thing that I really focus everything on, and I'm really excited about a couple of our companies, especially a couple of the semiconductor companies in Egypt.
semiconductors in Egypt. That is unusual. Give me a sense about what that means.
Your iPhone and every device you have is designed somewhere and built somewhere else.
That's
So
right.
the design part is where you have talent and less hardware and infrastructure. And the infrastructure to manufacturing plants are all in pretty much in Asia.
Yeah.
So Taiwan, China, Malaysia, Singapore, Korea, Japan. So these are fabulous companies that make semiconductor chips.
Mm-hmm.
One of them makes a timing chip, which is a component in almost every device that we have, and it is making the highest, most efficient timing chip in the world. 100% Egyptian engineering. That's the beauty of it. Is Egyptian engineers have designed what will be the best performing timing chip in the world. The other chip is the kind of the miracle chip, which is, I think, the coolest device and tech that will come out of the Middle East in my lifetime. And I think that it's a company that makes a spectrometer on a chip. So basically, you have a handheld device about the size of my coffee cup that's a full lab. And so you can take the lab to the sample. So
Amazing.
eventually you'll have a little device in the back of your phone right here. And just like you take pictures and videos, you'll be able to scan your food. I'm allergic to peanut. Does my food have peanut in it? You'll be able to do a test for people for your blood sugar, for blood alcohol, just like this through the skin.
Yeah.
And that's Egyptian technology. 65, 70 granted U.S. patents already for an Egyptian company. It's unheard
That's
of.
amazing. Yeah, of course it is. And presumably you got that the concept came to you, I guess, primarily because I remember during COVID with the slowdown in moving goods around the world, there was a major scare, right? That things like microchips from Taiwan, from China wouldn't reach us. And then of course with the geopolitical situation heating up between China and the US and Taiwan, there was a major worry, right, that all of that would slow down and wouldn't get to us. So that seems to me like a super insightful step to have taken, Ahmed. And I think we're all going to be very grateful to you for that.
I have to tell you these are the hard part about investing in tech like this is unlike an application, it doesn't go from zero to running in 6 months or a year. Some
Yeah.
of these things take the lab on a chip took a decade to build.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we have to invest at the right time when the company needs the growth because it's research, development. Okay, go to market.
Yep.
So that's the hard part and the fun part, really,
And
to
the
be
part
involved
where
in that.
you need a lot of patience at that stage because you're just waiting. It's a waiting game, right?
Well, we try not to invest in the first 8 years.
Right. Ah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. You come in at the end when it's on its way. Yeah.
Or no, we come in and fund the part that where they need the heavy money to grow because the research and the development takes probably, a tenth of the money and 90% of the money is to actually make it into a product, take it to market, salespeople get contracts and start producing and selling.
Yeah. So that's where your focus is a lot of now that you're mainly focused on that.
And we're doing fundraising. We're doing fundraising for our next fund. And,
Right.
where our mandate, the previous fund was 80% Egypt, 20% North Africa. This mandate's going to be all of Africa. And so with Egypt still a major component, 50, 60, 70%. And it's funded to be 3-4 times larger than the last one.
And is it always tech related, Ahmed?
Pretty much.
Pretty much now. I mean, I think all businesses now, I mean, it's almost obsolete to talk about tech and non-tech, right? It's just assumed that every company has a tech component anyway, right?
Every company uses tech, but we want the companies that make and sell tech and use tech in a unique way. For example, restaurants all use tech, but we would never invest in a restaurant chain. It's a great business for somebody else, but we're
Yeah.
looking for things that are venture returns that, minimum 3 to 5x on every investment and promoting some deep tech companies because that will really fuel follow-on companies. People that leave the companies that we fund eventually go on to start lots and lots of other companies.
Yeah. So you follow the breadcrumbs around with them, basically.
Yeah, yep, that too.
Yeah. If you were to look around the region today, are there businesses that catch your eye that you're following, you're keeping an eye on, waiting to see what they do, or industries for that matter that you're curious about?
The number one industry that everybody's curious about is AI and
Yeah.
how it's going to impact all aspects of our lives. And I would say that cyber and physical security will continue to grow substantially, especially with what's happening around us.
Yes. Yes.
So depends on uh, what things move and the talent in Egypt, what they focus on.
When you look around you at the businesses that you encounter, or you look at entrepreneurs, what are the biggest mistakes that you see around you that that are glaringly obvious that stand out amongst what new entrepreneurs are doing?
They don't listen to old entrepreneurs enough. Okay, number one. But I wouldn't put it on mistakes on entrepreneurs. I would put it that there's not enough funding here and
Yeah.
not enough risk taking
Yes.
on the financial side. There's enough risk taking. There wasn't when I started, quite a while ago. There was no risk taking on the finance side and on the entrepreneurial side. Now the entrepreneurs are taking leaps of faith and leaving their jobs and starting companies, and the fuel and funding to keep them going isn't enough. The amount of talent relative to funds in Egypt and in Africa is not enough.
But the rest of the region, the UAE, Saudi, the funding is there, right? But it's not coming to our side.
It's coming a little bit. First of all, the Saudis and the Emiratis are doing a magnificent job building their countries, right?
Yeah.
They're investing internally a lot, and they're investing some externally. But uh, you know, kudos to them for funding and developing ecosystems from almost nothing. And
Yeah.
we participate a little bit in both of those, but our major emphasis in Egypt and uh, the funding from the region, from the rest of the world, and locally is not enough. There is a lot of money in Egypt that's going into real estate
Yeah.
versus, I mean, companies going into real estate, you make good returns on the Egyptian pound. You don't make as good a return on the dollar if you count it as dollars. In venture investing, you actually make a good return on a dollar base and a phenomenal return on an Egyptian pound base.
So how do you see that changing, Ahmed? Where is our tipping point on that? Well, what needs to change for that to become a reality?
I think the next step, I wouldn't say there's nothing that's a tipping point, because um, it's an ecosystem and it has to be self-sustaining. And ecosystems aren't built in a day and rarely have tipping points. They get to the point where they keep going by themselves.
It's
Maybe
a
that's the
gradual
tipping point.
process.
Yeah, it's a slow process, but I think the key component would be that we need to have one or two large successful exits where a lot of people cash out, and the people that have value in stock today that's not liquid actually turn that into cash, into liquid asset, and start investing and doing it again.
Yes.
Okay, so that's I think that's the key component. And investors who made money, a lot of other people will want to make money like them, and you'll see more money come into the ecosystem. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to it. I see some good investments. There's some good companies. Some great companies have done really well, um, and hopefully the investors will make money.
So we need a couple of splashy, headline grabbing success stories, in other words, to
Right.
get the system kick-started a little bit. Yeah.
Not just high valuations on the next financing round.
Mm. If you were to do a profession that's not yours, if you could like have your dream, we all have these alternate sort of daydreams of something we would have loved to do and we never got into it. What would it be? What would you have? What would it be your alternative profession?
Well, neither of them, I don't have the skill to do either of them. One would be a professional golfer. Another one would be to be a painter. Okay.
Nice.
And that's not mine, of course. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's the two things really, if I were to say that's my two other passions,
And
that
why,
I would do.
Ahmed? What is it about golf that you love? What is it about painting that you love?
I think the thing about golf is it's a challenge, and it's the only game where you call the penalties on yourself. It's you against a stationary world. The ball doesn't move, the course doesn't move. It's just you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's very personal, very internal, and the painting is, it's a way to express yourself. Painting is an alternate way to express yourself, and I've always been fascinated because my father was a doctor and a geneticist, but an amazing painter, and he painted many, many paintings. And I used to sit and watch him paint as a child, and uh, it stuck in my heart.
So it's the idea of being creative in some way, and you're visually you like the concept of painting as opposed to music or writing or
Don't have the patience for music and writing.
yeah,
Takes a
yeah,
lot more patience.
yeah. When you look back at some pivotal moments for you, who was a big mentor for you? Who was a very influential person in your working life?
He passed away. His name was Boyd Jeffries, and he was my first boss. And I actually started working the same week his son started working, and 6 months later, his son died in a motorcycle accident.
Oh my
And
God.
he adopted me pretty much, and he taught me everything. And he was the toughest boss I ever knew, and he taught
This
me
was
the
when
most
you were in
amazing.
banking, Ahmed, when you were in
When I
banking?
when I first started on Wall Street, I
Yeah,
was in my early 20s, 22, 23. My first job after college, and he was amazing, and he taught me the work ethic. I was telling somebody the other day, the first 10 years of work when I worked on Wall Street, I took 3-day weekends and one week vacation to get married. I didn't take another vacation for 10 years, just work. Right.
yeah,
And it was, the drive, and it's like a coach who, cracks the whip and teaches you to run at as many laps as you can, more than you thought you could. And so that when
yeah,
you're on your own, you know what you can do. You know what you're
yeah.
capable of because somebody pushed you to your limit. And I was blessed to have somebody like that. Very few people have somebody who pushes them to or beyond their limit, and then they realize where their boundaries are, and then they're in control.
Yeah, I also find, and it's something that I've noticed in the last 3-4 years that I've been doing these interviews, that those lessons that people learn early on in their careers um, stay with them in such a strong way and influence everything they do after that. They're really strong lessons, and you obviously clearly learned them from a mentor, but others learn them just from whatever they're doing in their work. But those early lessons are really, really important because they set the foundation for everything you do after. And your discipline obviously came from that point.
Yeah, it was truly amazing. And his most famous line says, "You're the only person that can wake up and kick yourself in the rear to get yourself going. If you don't motivate yourself, nobody's going to do it for you."
Yeah, 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 yeah. Who is the person you most look up to? Could be personal, professional.
My dad, no comparison. I mean, miles ahead of anybody else. My father was the most amazing human being I've met until today, and I would tell you that probably 100 other people would say the same thing about him. Right? He truly was a unique person.
What were his qualities that stand out for you?
Stillness inside. My father never interrupted a human being in his life when they were speaking. He was so comfortable with his space and where he was, he left room for everyone around him to grow, right? And nothing, it was not a threat to him to allow people to speak, to allow people to do what they want, as long as you're doing the right thing and not the wrong thing. And, um, I he's basically taught me kind of, you know, how to be a good person, how to be religious, how to be spiritual. I mean, my father was very religious and very spiritual, which is a difficult combination. Not a lot of people have that. Okay, he had the two.
How old was he when how old were you when he passed away?
It was 7 years ago. I was quite old, so I was very blessed to see him. And uh, all 11 of his grandkids and his kids and a couple of his great grandkids were around him in his last day. And um, you know,
Yeah,
anything you want to say, Giddo. And he said, "فَمَا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ." Remember God's blessings.
yeah. My father passed away 2.5 years ago,
Yeah,
and
Allah yarhamu.
thank you. For me, the it was obviously it was the closest person to me that's passed away so far. And one thing I never expected was to constantly feel his presence in odd ways and odd times. And very often I find myself thinking, what would he have done, or what would he have guided me to do? What would he have told me? And it's an amazing thing because when he was there, I might not have asked for his opinion about something, but now I'm like thinking consciously, what would he have said?
I laugh for two reasons. My children and my sister children, there's 11 of them, and they're all very close. They all are within a 7, 8, 10 year age gap, and they talk to each other when they talk, and they say, "What would Giddo do?"
Yeah,
Okay,
it's funny, huh?
exactly that.
Yeah,
And I would tell you the observation is, I've told everybody he's not gone. I just haven't spoken to him for a while.
yeah,
All right,
exactly,
his
exactly.
fullness of his personality is still
Yeah,
here. We just haven't
absolutely.
spoken.
There's a wonderful poem. It's by a cardinal or a reverend or something. It's called The Other Room, and it's exactly what you say. It's that people don't die; they just slip away. They're in another space, but they're there. It's a very moving poem. So yeah. Anyway, so I want to ask you, what is a typical day like for you these days? Give me a sense of a typical day.
Typical day. I wake up in the morning, and my wife and I go play. You know, we have kind of an hour in the morning, pray, drink tea, go to the club, play golf for a couple hours, hour and a half, go work out for 45 minutes, start my day at 11, and uh, go home, go to dinner, hang out with my wife somewhere. We go out with somebody, but uh, it's kind of very, um, very calm and peaceful, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, and you said your office is in the same building as where you live now?
Yeah,
So that's super convenient in Cairo traffic. That's amazing. So you're
I live
upstairs. Your
upstairs.
home is upstairs. That's good. That's good. And you're mainly in Cairo these days, right? You're not in LA as much as you used to be a long time ago.
I've kept it 7, 8 months in Cairo, 4 months in LA, and a month here and there for the last 15 years.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
been
yeah,
pretty consistent. Los Angeles, the work is, I get up at 4 in the morning. By 5 in the morning, I'm on the phone with Cairo,
yeah,
with everybody here, with the portfolio companies. It's
yeah,
really nice. And then in the afternoon, uh, play golf and hang out with the grandkids.
yeah. It's lovely. So I'm going to jump into a quick fire round with you, and then we're gonna say goodbye.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a couple of things, and you just say the first thing you feel. All
Okay.
right. I think I know the answers to most of these already, but our audience might not. So, golf or tennis,
Golf,
burgers or kushari,
burgers,
startup or multinational,
startup,
Cairo or LA.
50-50.
What's your favorite activity?
To learn something new.
What's your least favorite activity?
I had to do the same thing over and over again.
Okay, so finish this sentence. I have a hard time.
Doing mundane tasks every day.
I get joy from.
Learning something new, seeing somebody be happy or succeed.
Okay. And then I'm a risk taker or I am cautious.
I'm slightly past risk taker.
To the
Excessive risk
extreme
taker. To the
to
extreme.
the extreme of risk taker. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I want to ask you one final thing, which is when you began working in Egypt and you began working in the startup space and the entrepreneurial space, how has the ecosystem changed since then? I mean, what are the fundamental changes that you've witnessed in that time?
I kind of start cross society. Parents don't think their kids are stupid for starting companies anymore and living a job. Um, the entrepreneurs are willing to leave jobs and careers. Uh, like, um, I had a guy quit his company and go get a job because he couldn't get married because the girl's father wouldn't let him marry a guy without a steady salary. And he went to work for less money than he was making and left the upside on the table. Um, and as important, the government, the leadership, the financial institutions are all in, all in agreement that this is the right thing, that it's the exact key aspect of a developed economy. And this is, uh, it's crazy numbers. I don't know the exact updated numbers, but it used to be like a quarter or 0.5% of the GDP of the US was invested in startups and in companies that eventually accounted for 25% of GDP.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that pool of VC money that keeps rotating and funding these companies gets them from zero to where traditional money will fund them. That's exactly what we're doing with startups.
Yep.
Startups grow to the point where traditional private equity firms and banks invest in them.
Yep.
So now banks are taking risk and investing into into VC firms in order to launch that.
That's wonderful, Ahmed. Thank you so much. This is exactly, it was a little soundbite into your life. It was a glimpse into what you're up to. It was great. Thank you for that. Thanks for
It was
taking the
my
time.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
That was my Encore catch-up with Ahmed Alfi. We'll continue this segment each month with another of the show's old-timers, so stay tuned for my check-ins with designer Nadine Canso, media powerhouse Amy Muethi, and many, many more. And if you haven't already done so, you can listen to previous Encores with Ahmad Samra and Neda Dibs. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Malak Fuad, the show's host, and the podcast is produced by Chirag Desai. You can watch all of our episodes on YouTube and connect with us on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and on X. I'll be back next week with a special episode with Rawia Mansour. I hope you can join me then.